Well, let's see what we've got. Well, this is the trumpet that's on the existing body shell, MGC body shell. But as you can probably tell, it's got an MGB inner wing trumpet that's been welded on. Now the trumpet's actually in quite good nick, so it's almost a shame to take it off. But it's got to come off because it's wrong. Anyway, there it is. And the same thing applies for the passenger side. So yeah, it's got to be zipped off as well. And by taking the trumpets off, it's uncovered the original inner wing, which had just had some steel slapped over the top of it and welded up. So didn't know that was there, so that's nice to see. At least I've got something to look at to try and copy. Now obviously, as I didn't have the MGC inner trumpets to copy and to make some templates, a kind MGC owner allowed me to go and look at his body shell, and Kev and I popped up there and we took the measurements, took some templates from his car. So having made the templates and brought them back home, I've now laid them out on some 19 gauge Zintex steel and going to mark out the folds and the cuts, and then we'll start folding them up. Before I started to participate in this rebuild project, the biggest project I've ever done on my life, one question I kept asking myself, or looking on the internet to find out, is what material to use, what paper to use for making the templates. And I couldn't really find a definitive answer. A lot of people seem to be using cereal packets, and I did collect a load of cereal packets ready, but a lot of them didn't seem to be big enough to make the size templates that I needed. So, racking my brain, I come up with the idea of using some thick lining wallpaper, which I've used in previous work before, and it's turned out to be absolutely the right thing to use as far as I'm concerned. Everyone's obviously got their own opinion, but I would certainly give it a view. It's ever so cheap, a few quid per roll, comes on a huge roll. Got mine from a local superstore. It's durable, you can fold it, easy to mark with it, and if you make a mistake, well, it hasn't cost you a lot to start again. I needed something to draw around to make some curves, so I had to grab a few bits and pieces out of the workshop, and then finally went to the garden and found a bucket, and it was, well, near enough, and just used that as a template, and it seemed to work quite well actually. You'll see that I'm only cutting out the front and top section at this point, because I think they're the ones I've got to fold first and then concentrate on this very shaped bottom bit at a later date. And next I'm going to cut some chipboard panels just out to form the curve for the bottom of the front elevation of the trumpet, and the idea is that the steel will be sandwiched in between the two shapes, the two cutouts of chipboard, and then I can hammer form the curve around the chipboard. And just a little reminder that I've never done this before. I've never bashed steel round a wooden template form before, so I am learning as I go. Be interested to see what it turns out like. Using a beveled router bit in the router just to soften the edge of the curve. I don't know if it's a good idea or not, but I thought I'll give it a try. It's only just very slight, just to take the edge off the chipboard, and I thought it would be easier for the steel to sort of go round a gentle curve rather than trying to do a dead 90-degree hammer form. Just checking here that the top and bottom template are okay on my line, on my curve line, before I start to hammer form it. I decided to use the 20-ton press to hold the bits of wood together, and that seemed to work out quite well. Just had to spread the weight with a piece of box iron to keep it consistent, and just moved it along a little bit when I needed the pressure a bit more at another spot, but that certainly seemed to work well. And when you're making all of these different things, always go back to the car body and double check if you need to make any adjustments or minor cuts or anything. Now's the time to do it. Or if you need to throw it away and start again, well, you're better off doing it at this stage than at a later stage. So here I'm just using the vise to make some bends where the trumpet goes into the body. Vise is the easiest thing to use, I thought, and again it seems to do the job. I think the rule of thumb when you're making these things, particularly if you've never done it before and you're probably limited on tools, is use whatever you've got to hand. Here I'm using an old tarmac rammer which I've had for donkey's years. Don't use anymore. In fact, I've got two. I've got a square one, and under the bench I've got a round one. If you haven't got an anvil, this seems to work quite well. At a later date you'll see me using other things. For instance, I've got some old metal weights, lifting weights, round ones, which are ideal for making various curves when you're shaping your metal. Here I'm doing a test fit again, quite happy with the fit so far, and once I've got it held in with clecos I'll be able to do some fine adjustments as needed. Here I'm using serial packet to form a template for the underside of the trumpet, which is the most complicated pattern to form. Very shortly after making this video, I wasn't happy with the nose section of the trumpet, and I've modified it quite a bit, as you'd see in the next video. This one here, I've got it far too square, Although in some cars I've seen it very squashed with splayed out sort of sections at the end, and it looked untidy. So I've tried to make it in such a way that sort of made it look a bit neater. But certainly this is a bit too square, and in the next video I actually attempt to flatten it down a little bit. Thank you for watching part 1. Please continue watching to see how it turns out in part 2.